Yes. So, good evening to everyone. Welcome to Real Talk, our usual Monday evening social media outreach program, the United Workers Party. And, we just want to welcome everyone who is tuning in at this time. I know a number of persons, they are looking forward to this program. This program has been going on for more than 3 months now, and it's a pleasure for us to continue to highlight Dominicans about what is happening. Dominica's issues concerning youth, concerning agriculture, concerning the departments of growth, tourism, manufacturing, all what contains and constitute, issues concerning the development of Dominica. It is important for us to highlight this. And tonight, we have the honor to present to you a young man by the name of Alexon Etienne from Portsmouth. He's with us tonight, and we welcome you, Alexon. Good night to you. Good evening.
Yeah, good night. Good night, Doc. How are you doing?
Yes.
Yes,
and obviously we have Dr. Thomson Fontaine with us.
Yes.
But straight off the bat, I would just like to say, Mr. Alexon, youth, I like you. Good evening, and just welcome to Real Talk, United Workers Party social media program. And as a form of introduction, just tell us who you are and what you're about.
Okay. Good night to everybody listening, to the whole workers family out there within Dominica and all those who are abroad. We have a strong workers base outside. And I cannot wait when the UWP government will take back office, so these people can actually come back home and contribute to the development of our country. Right. My name is Alexon Etienne. I kind of wear the flag of Portsmouth because that's where I reside. I think from 2000, my mother decided to move to Portsmouth. So then, but originally I was born in Benz, born and raised until I was at least, until 2000. And then, so all my secondary education, I went to the Portsmouth Secondary School. Before that, let me say that there were 3 school years that really shaped my life, that caused me to be the person I am today.
Right.
And that was 3 years of the junior secondary program, the JSP. So I actually attended the JSP in Portsmouth Government School through 97 to 2000. And from there, I went to PSS. And ever since, I've been a carpenter.
Wow.
So that's why I learned trade. I learned trade in JSP, and then I went to, between the years of 2006 to 2011, I went to St. Martin. So I stayed St. Martin for 5 years, where I actually perfected my art of woodworking.
Wow.
So now, I don't want to boast myself or anything, but I think I would like to call myself one of the best cabinet builders in Dominica. Trust me. But you see, sometimes you have to give yourself your own flowers, Although most of the persons I work for, we became friends because they were really satisfied with my quality of work. So that's what actually sustaining my life, my family life and everything. So that's what really keeps me going as a carpenter. So That's basically about me. I got 2 young boys, one 11, one 7, and I really trying to lead them in the direction that, is the skills that pay the bills.
Wow, that's my motto. Skill that pay the bills. That's a nice one, man. I love that.
Trust me. Trust me. So that's basically me. So I'm really looking forward to a good show tonight, a good program tonight, and I hope a lot of young people, would actually tune in, because I know we have a lot in store tonight, and looking forward to it.
Well, thank you. And Doc, you must be proud.
Oh, absolutely, Alexon, welcome. It's great to have you. I think you exemplify the greatness of our Dominican youth, and the potential that is there in different areas. And also, I'm very pleased that you're one of those who returned to Dominica while still in your youth. And as you rightly pointed out, we in the United Workers Party are very much concerned about attracting people back into Dominica, but not only those who are retired, but those who can still offer useful years of service when they're still in the youth. And that is what we are working on. That's one of the major pillars of our 10-pillar program for Dominica, attracting Dominicans back from the diaspora. And I'm glad you've led the way. And as you rightly said, others will follow, because the policies that we have in place and the policies that we plan to implement will be geared towards that, ensuring that we really make use of this great amount of expertise and human resource that we have outside of Dominica. And as you also indicated, they listen, they contribute, they play their part, but many, many more of them, I'm telling you, many, many more of them are planning to come into Dominica once the UWP government is in place. So we're very excited about that, and we're actually planning around that possibility.
Yes, thank you, Doc. And we have it tonight, and I will go with that. It's the skills that pay the bills, right? We have that lockdown. We have that lockdown.
Yeah, trust me.
Let me just make the announcement that we are urging Dominicans from all over the world to get confirmed, because many of them are on the voters list. And the only good talk is good talk, but without persons having able to be confirmed, to have their names on the final register, then it's not possible. It will not be possible that they participate in the electoral process. So we urging people that, we say people come first. Well, you come first this time. Get to confirm. And for those who have attained the age of 18 years, you must get to register. So we all have one common goal, is to remove this government from office, because they have failed the youth, they have failed Dominicans and everybody. So, Doc, right away, I'll get you on this.
Yes, absolutely. So in fact, let me compliment the electoral office there. They're actually doing a mobile center at the stadium, and certain days they're focusing it on different constituencies. So for example, that there are a number of people from all over Dominica that work in Roseau, in or around Roseau. They work there, but they might even be living there because of the transportation issues and so on, but they're still voting back in the home communities. So on the 14th of April, the La Plaine does the electoral office, the polling stations 01 to 07. Any person from La Plaine residing in Roseau can take advantage of this opportunity from 9:30 to 5:30 in the afternoon. So that you can just go to the Windsor Park Sports Stadium, an office will be set up there, and you'll be able to be registered. So that's for the La Plaine constituents. Then on the 21st, a week later, those from Montjon, Rivière-Syriac, and Grand Fond, those are residing around Roseau, take that opportunity to go in there, again from 9:40 to 5:30. And those from Cassibros are encouraged to go on April 28th. So the 14th, 21st, and 28th, the Electoral Commission will be conducting confirmation exercise for persons or constituents or those who are registered in these constituencies, La Plaine, Grand Fond, and Cassibros. They will be taking their confirmations at the Windsor Park. So that makes it easier. So persons have no excuse. We were organizing for some people to go on weekends, in particular on Saturdays, up to Grand Fond, but now they can save the cost. I know some persons who actually hired transportation just to go up and get registered. At least that cost can be saved, and persons can in fact do that. And we're very happy for that opportunity for more persons to be able to get confirmed.
Oh, yeah, good. And so, Mr. Felixson, you have been hearing about the, confirmation, and some time ago, there was a pause for young people to get registered because some of them have attained the age of 18 years and they were unable to register for about 7 months, which was a breach by the Electoral Commission, by the way, based on the law. There is what they call continuous registration. They should not have stopped in the first place. By and large, they have resumed. What is your advice to many young persons who have attained the age of 18 and are first-time registered voters, or a first time of going to register or getting registered? What is your advice for them?
Well, I would like to encourage every young person to go and get registered, because that's the only way you can actually be part of the process of changing government. You understand? And if, I would say, we've been under this particular government for 25 years. 25 years. And most you see the struggles of your parents, right? You see how hard it is for them to make ends meet. Even some of your parents like really, really struggling just to, give you a proper meal to send you to school. Now, I think is the time that you should even encourage your parents and to look to a different direction. And the only way we can actually achieve that is straight up. You have to register. Your vote counts. So I would really want to encourage everyone to get registered or be part of the reconfirmation process. And that's the only process, that's the only way we have to really get this government out. So I'd really like us as young people, huge numbers, to be part of that process.
Oh yeah, thank you very much. And Doc, I know you're going to comment, but I want to get back to Mr. Etienne because for the past year or so, the United Workers Party has been engaged in what they call publicity campaign with respect to the 10-pillar plan that we've had for the people, and it's like a social contract. It's more or less a skeleton framework of what will then generate into what they call a strategic plan for Dominica, and what is it that we are going to do. And one of the areas we've been looking at strongly, because over the years, because youths are not incentivized to remain in Dominica, most of them go overseas for greener pastures. And so one of our pillars actually targets the whole idea of retaining our youth, because when a country loses its youth, its healthy part, that's just the energy part of a country, the young people. When you lose that productive age, that country just cannot grow. And that's one of the things that we promise, to ensure that the enabling environment is right, the employment environment is right, so that youth can be retained and to contribute to the development of the country. As you see it right now, Mr. Etienne, how over the years you have been looking, you talk about you went overseas, you now become a prominent, well-known, accomplished, what they call carpentry guy, and you're doing good work. How do you see over the years? What have you been observing? What is the prospect for youth right now in Dominica? How do you see youth and youth development in Dominica as we speak?
Okay, let me start by saying that most of the young persons that I grew up with, those I could relate to, probably those I went to church with, those we could play cricket and stuff with. Most of them actually traveled. Most of them not living in Dominica anymore. So you find people of my age group living overseas, probably married, have family, have their career going on, living overseas without no real intention of even coming back. Most times they come probably for Creole Festival and go back. Right? Just the other day, a good prominent friend of mine, I didn't even know, but we were speaking on WhatsApp the other day, and he told me he's not living in Dominica anymore. Wow. So in my view, when every person that have the strength, that have the energy, that have the skill, that have the education, actually leave the country and go, what type of country are we really gonna build? But sometimes you can't really blame them. Most of these people are in Dominica. They are most times underemployed. The amount of money they make doesn't really suit their qualification. The bills outweigh their salary. Most times they borrow just to make ends meet. When they do get a salary, it's just basically to pay somebody they owe in. So sometimes you cannot really blame them for wanting to leave. Because myself, I was part of that too. I did leave back in 2006. I came back. And the funny thing, if I tell you the reason I actually came back, because there was this guy, a Dominican contractor guy in St. Martin. And he was and then he was building apartments. He was building apartments in the Picard area for Ross, for the Ross University. Yeah. And then he's a guy we worked for while being in SM. And when he came down to build these apartments, he actually contacted us from SM to come Dominica to work, to do the cabinets. So then I came down Dominica on that mission to do that work.
Wow.
And when I left, after the guy finished his project and he went back, I got another project for 14 kitchens on an apartment building in Picard. And then ever since, that's when I realized, there's a market for my skill in Dominica, so I don't need to be in another person's country. So I decided that I was staying here. Then I opened a shop. I opened my workshop in the Glenroy area back then. No, I actually moved. I got a bigger space. So I'm not presently in Glanville anymore, but I moved and opened a bigger shop, get better tools, bigger machines, and then, so ever since I've been doing that. Now it's very hard to find like young men with that kind of skill because young men approach me for work. Sometimes when they come in the shop, them fellas can't even read a tip.
Train
So,
them.
so then that's why I feel like we need to prepare the young men, especially for, like I say, prepare them in skills. Like that's why I really had a problem with like this with like this universal education stuff, because I really thought it was really weakening our skill growth in Dominica, especially amongst the young men. Because then you find a lot of them drop out from school, probably at the fourth form level, third form level, and then they drop out from school, and then there is no real employment for them because they don't even have the skill. Like a carpenter will not really employ them because it's a waste of time. An electrician might not employ them because they don't have the skill set. So I really think we should like focus more on preparing these young men or young ladies for the workforce, which I thought that the JSP program back then was a good thing. It was actually preparing you for the workforce. That even if you drop out from school, probably in fifth form or fourth form, you could go to the workforce because you already had a free level of skills that you just need to perfect and go straight back into it. So I think once the environment is right, and the environment is right in Dominica again, I think people will come back because there's no place like home. You can put it how you want, there's no place like home. And most time the country that they really go to, they have what Dominica, the potential Dominica have, these countries, they're like cannot compare in no way. Most times, that's why they come back for the fun, because they want to be part of Dominica. It's just that the environment doesn't really encourage them to be here. So I think that's why I'm looking forward to a change of government.
Oh, yes,
because I know a change of government will bring back that environment, that work environment,
Yes, and Doc, it is interesting he mentioned skills and augmenting skills, and that is what we require because over the years we have had many apartments built, many health centers. The government boasts that, but what the government cannot boast is that Dominicans were the ones who built it, and as a result, because you Prime Minister is on record stating that we do not have the skills, but you don't see it necessary to have the enabling environment right to train young people. And Doc, as he mentioned about skills, I know that part of the component in education and retention of youth is about the technical and vocational aspect. So here you come in now, based on the 10 pillars.
Yeah, absolutely. So in fact, one of the things that we have been talking about and we have been very forceful about, and in fact, we see the government announcing a move, and we believe it's because we have been pressing on the fact that we will transform the National Employment Program into a skills training program.
Yes.
So we'll actually give people real skills, real life skills. So those who don't want to do the academics will get a chance to do different skills, whether it's auto mechanics, whether it is cabinet making, masonry, plumbing, electricals, so all of those areas, I think that we'll be able to train our young people in and train them in a way that they can contribute towards the future development of our country. So we're looking at skills that will be needed as we build the country, as we focus on really great economic empowerment and development. Those skills that will be able to supplement and support that effort is what we'll be looking at. And so we have announced already that the NEP will be transformed. We are now hearing the government is proposing to actually make them permanent government workers.
And after the fact.
But I think, and that's another discussion for another day, but we know the big problem of persons not being employed. Teachers working 15, 20 years not being employed permanently. I think to me that's where the government should be looking to really ensure that persons who have been in the service a very long time get permanent employment, teachers and police officers and so on. So that is something that as a party we are really focused on in terms of developing the skills of our young people, empowering them. And that is a fundamental part of our 10 pillars. And it falls right into what Alexson is stating and what he as a young person is doing and is seeing the need for around Dominica.
Yes, and I just want to applaud Alexin for his, comments, and well said by the way, Alexin, because, just as you talked about skills and so, I believe it is not, something new that we know that persons who are not so academically inclined, because there are a number of persons who don't like the books, but there are also many persons who, of course, if you put them in some skills training, that they will opt for that. And it is important that youth understand, or a country understands, that its policy is not just about academic. You have to have that mix and blend, and not that you don't know what you are doing, because yes, the practical aspect is there, but obviously, when you take your measurements, you have to first know basic maths, so you learn that, of course, and then well, you take your measurements, you have to be precise, you give the person what they want, and quality of work. But Alexel, as you go along, I know it hurts you because there are a number of young persons who just sit by the roadside, and sometimes when you pass, not their fault, they sit down in group, they ride their bikes, they think it's fun. Some of them have children, some of them they smoke their heart away and their minds away, they blow it. And the time runs very quickly. And so the 24-hour clocks keep coming and coming, and next day they're in the same predicament. What advice do you have for these young people? Because it seems to me, or it appears to all of us, that they have given up on life. And here it is that you have that avenue where you say, look, you can be your own boss. We can look at developing entrepreneurship among young persons. What advice do you have for these young people?
Well, first off, like the personal development. Okay. Before I even comment on that,
Yes,
I would really like to say that like learning a skill doesn't necessarily mean that you are not smart, that you are not. You understand? Because basically, I think like a skill prepares you for the workforce. And if you after obtaining your skill, that you want to further your education in whatever field you feel like, your skill can actually pay for that education. You understand? So I honestly believe that people should be taught a skill first, and then your skill can drive you to whatever you want to become. You understand? Now,
Yeah.
in regards to the young people on the roadside, I really think this system has to be blamed for that. Because basically, what choice do they have? So, you understand? You get up in the morning, probably your mother doesn't work, you self don't have a job.
Right.
You understand? You don't want to sit down at home and watching. You understand? And just pull up watching your mother in the face. So most times you find these young guys find comfort on the block, find comfort on the street. You understand? Sometimes they find that level of comfort. Like they say, everybody have the poison.
Yes.
You
And
understand?
your poison got better than man's strength, yeah?
Exactly. So sometimes you find these young fellas smoking and drinking, and I think this system has really be blamed for that. And I also think that we need to involve more of because most of these people, how I would put it, I really think it's I can't find the term I'm really looking for. But that's where I would say that. I try to think of the right term.
Yeah,
Right.
but
You mean in terms of the ability to come forward and
No, in terms of getting help from the right set of people, because most of the times I think it have to do with some condition.
yeah.
So this psychiatrists, I think these people need some psychiatric help in some sort of ways to get them back on track and let them know that there's more to life than just wasting time. First of all, especially to the young men, I mean, these young men need to realize that men were supposed to be the breadwinners, the providers, the protectors. And I think if they just get back to that basic knowledge of being a man, especially know your role as an individual, as a human, then I think they could get back on track. But also, I think that it have to start from young.
Yes, and let's put it in perspective. I see some people already. Well, let me also take some comments, and then we will continue the discussion. We must have two-tier education system. I intend on meeting with the Prime Minister in June. Good initiative. The person who's saying that there, that is very important. But let us put it in perspective, and that is true to an extent that the system could be blamed for a number of things. And the right policies of government, if well established, if well formulated, it could be something that could direct young people to get involved. And so, yes, in terms of the government policies, they are not strong enough to encourage youth. For instance, for many years, we talk about the wage bill. And Doc, you will comment in that because I wanted to come in and feed on this one. And a number of persons are saying, look, for many years, their parents have been working and they are not seeing the success of their parents. And so the system in itself doesn't encourage them to do what they have to do. Some of them may have gone to school, they may have dropped out because of the very fact that they may not have the proper nourishment to sustain good health for learning, for the learning environment. Some of them peer pressure, some of them, as you rightly said, they might be psychologically depressed and would need psychiatric, counseling and so forth. Fair enough. But all in all, you can choose. And I just want to give that givepeople.com. I remember some years ago, and as you from Portsmouth, Alexander, people should know that, Mr. Etienne, young man, we had a trip, our chemistry class took a field trip to Ross University. And there was a specimen in a glass case that one of the professors, he was showing us exactly, and he was asking us, what is this? What do you all think is this? And we there, brain rattling and seeing what is happening. We couldn't find it. All I know, in that glass specimen, you could see something that was baked, that was cooked, something black, something like charcoal. And after some time, he said to us, you know what is this? This is someone who had lung cancer. And that person donated that body part to the school for exhibit. And do you know, I smoked once in my life before seeing that. And that was many years ago. And after this one, I never put not a marijuana, not a cigarette, nothing like smoke in my mouth again. So we can learn. So I must say young people must take responsibility. And they must be strong, they must be resilient to reject the negative. But Doc, this is a nice conversation. And you have been talking about youth development and economic development for youth to participate in economic development, to be innovative. And here it is that your policies are ready, just a draft in the framework. You have already begun to develop as an avenue, as an incentive, right? Talking about increasing the national wage, talking about tax incentives, talking about training, youth retention, agriculture, manufacturing, tourism, talking about green energy. All of these areas are applicable for youth participation. Your take on this?
Yes, indeed, Soso, and I think that's where a United Workers' Party differs significantly from a Labour Party, in the sense that we are truly focused on creating those opportunities for young people, and especially as we look at a youth crisis that's we are faced with, the number of young persons on the streets, the number of young persons that are battling mental health issues, the fact that we have a number of persons, substance abuse is really skyrocketing, and so on. A number of these social type problems that we have with the youth, and you can link a lot of those problems to the lack of opportunities that this country has given to them. Imagine if you're a young person, you've gone to school. Like I met several of these young people. I met a young man the other day, who told me, he actually did math in sixth form, and it told me he has not been able to get a job, and the frustration level was just out of this world, because that's a young man who feels that society has let him down, because he had done the right thing. He'd gone to school, gone to high school, gone on to the state college, and now he was just lying on the block with no opportunities, So, and you have a number of those cases in Dominica. So that's why our approach is quite simple: create opportunities for young people. And how do you create those opportunities? You create these opportunities by growing the economy, by ensuring that you go back in a big way into agriculture, into agro processing, into the manufacturing industry, into boosting our water resources, into our ecotourism systems, and so on. Ensuring that all of those areas are activated, and there is economic activity going on within those sectors, that the young people can actually find a choice. Now I want to contribute to my country. Where do I work? Do I work in this area or in this other area? Do I focus on advertising, on IT? So you have those different areas for the young people, and that is what we're talking about: creating real substantive opportunities for young people, that we can take them away from that frustration, move them away from having to be dependent upon some drug, or just falling through the cracks. And I think too many of our young people are falling through the cracks. And I'm sure, Alexa, and I'm sure you would have seen that, and so, and you say, boy, not another one. It's almost like every other week you go into town, you see a new face, a new young frustrated face on the streets, and it is really heartbreaking that so many of our young people are falling through those cracks. And therefore, we are focused on changing that. We are focused on giving them economic opportunity. We are focused on growing the economy and reducing this very, very high level of youth unemployment that we have in this country.
Yes, and one person is saying here that many of the young men you see hanging around are normally in the late teens, which would suggest that they have at least a basic elementary education. That in itself is a sign of having some kind of common sense to know that they can initiate the process of trying to find gainful employment by pounding the pavement and not waste their everyday lives just hanging around. Too many times, our youth expect things to be handed to them and not to the work of seeking or searching for ways to serve it. Well, yes, and that we can comprehend with. But Alexander, you are from Portsmouth, and you've known Portsmouth to be a vibrant community. In fact, when we had Ross, you had a number of persons exhibiting their various skills. Those who cut the grass, you have to respect them. Those that did domestic work, we have to respect them. You had maintenance in electricals. You had electricians down there. People who maintained and installed what they call air conditioning units. People who were painters. You had roof repairs. You had people who did railing, fencing. So a number of those jobs now, because we have lost Ross, with the departure of Ross now, Portsmouth is virtually a ghost town. Luckily for you, I don't know how this has affected your market with respect to cabinetry, but it appears that you have found a niche and you are doing well. But how do you see, because by and large, Portsmouth has a lot of investments, all the buildings that are there, and nobody's talking about cottage tourism, nobody's talking about community tourism, because even when Ross was there, the occupancy rate was well below 50%. And with Ross, the departure of Ross, now it's like, I know. When Ross had started earlier in the days, we had 80, 90% occupancy. We had enough rooms at the time to host the students. But when some of the semester moved to abroad, then that started diminishing. But after Ross has gone, what is the future like for Portsmouth and youth? Because that is a big chunk. It was assumed that 30% of GDP comprised of Portsmouth revenue, Ross University revenue. I don't know how much evidence there is in that, but let us forget that. A part of that, what are you seeing in the Portsmouth community and environment?
Well, obviously, like the departure of Ross did not help in Portsmouth in no way. In terms of the economic activity in Portsmouth, just look at we have after the departure of Ross, we saw a lot of other businesses close down. There was a branch of Courts in Portsmouth. There was a branch of Whitchurch in Portsmouth. If you remember, KFC was in Portsmouth.
Yes.
While Ross was there, there were also like when you look at the lounge in Picard, there's so many businesses that actually closed down in
Which
Portsmouth.
you can
And
cut-
imagine,
which you can cut out.
and imagine a business like Cots closing down, a business that actually give credit. so you could tell how difficult it is to actually make ends meet for some of these people. Some of these people, I mean, not only Portsmouth, but when you look at Ross on a whole, the whole north was affected by this. I mean, people used to live from Penville, from Calibishi, Woodfordale, Benz, Paybush. People live. There were people actually from Tong who actually worked at Ross. So it kind of it's just, trust me. And we talk about like you pass in Port Picard now, and then you'll see all these dilapidated building. Some of the owners even just close their place and go. Like some of them, like especially those that have the opportunity, the overseas life, they close. I know of this brother. He's actually from Grenada, but he's married to a Dominican lady, and they invested in apartments at Ross. And the departure of Ross, he go into a depression and he just put a padlock on his place and he left. And the good thing is what he said, that unless this government to change, he don't coming back Dominica. so you can actually imagine, because the government actually told us that at the time they were building the Kempinski, and they actually said that the Kempinski was going to fill that void that Ross left economically. you remember they say that the Kempinski were filled for 3 years. Every room was filled for 3 years. That we never see that materialize. They said that all the farmers on enough would sell their stuff to Kempinski and whatever. We see that never happen. As a matter of fact, there are people working at well, they changed them now to Intercontinental, and the occupancy rate is like most of the times is below 10%. You understand? The only time it seems to be relevant is when the government have their big dinners and whatever, and they go down there. You understand? Just to make it look like something happening.
Yes.
So basically, economically in Portsmouth, trust me, it's rough. And the thing about me, most of my work don't actually come from Portsmouth. So because I mean I work all over. You understand? I'm mobile. Yes. My last project was in Granby.
Imagine.
So basically, that's how it is.
And so, Doc, we're coming back to that point, because having listened to the young man here, I get a sense that we get to understand the effects that, the departure of Ross has actually, brought to bear on this community and by large Dominica. And even the farming community was affected. Farmers who used to bring their produce to the various outlets, the hotels, the guest houses, they've lost that market. Employment went right down. Weed whackers are now, corrugated, they are rusted, and so many things. We talk about a Moroccan hotel that never was open, and that, in fact, they trained young people. The government actually trained young people, dress them in their uniform, telling them that Moroccan hotel is going to open, because it never opened. The Kempinski opened now, Intercontinental, as the young man rightly said. It hardly meets its occupancy threshold, and so many other things. And that is why, Doc, it is important that one understands that the 10-pillar plan that we have is directed at restoring areas of such that are weak, because we must be able to bring a decent living to our Dominican people, to allow them to feed their families, and to bring some good economic restoration to their situation, because it is not as easy. And Doc, we cannot stop re-emphasizing the fact that this aspect of our program will actually be part of what we call the shared prosperity thrust that we are moving towards. And I know it pains you, knowing that you are economists, we rely on you, and we know you can do it. Doc, everybody says, and I just got a text there from my young business saying, I really want Doc to really continue with this 10-pillar plan, that says, because to me, that's the only thing I'm hearing that have some hope. The government talking about putting NEP people, giving them permanent employment. They cannot tell us they cannot tell us in what department. So, Doc, we cannot stop re-emphasizing and reiterating and repeating. they can accuse us of being repetitive. It is important. We'd like to hear it again from you, the 10-pillar plan, and just briefly what the areas mean for Dominican and restoration.
Yeah, so I mean, it is unfortunate that we have what happened in Portsmouth, Ross, and the kinds of investments. I was down there not too long ago, and I was just seeing the number of homes, and I'm like, okay, it was after 7, so you could tell which homes were not occupied and so on, and then the grass. I mean, you're talking about just scores and scores of buildings. It is really depressing just to see, just to drive through Picard and back there off the main road and to see there's a number of buildings that are just there. Nice big structures, 3-story buildings, some apartment buildings, and so on, and then just not been occupied, and it is really unfortunate. So how do you get life back into communities like this? How do you generate that level of economic activity? And that is where our 10 pillars come in, because at the heart of the 10 pillars is the generation of economic activity, is growth generation, economic growth generation. It is employment generation. It is bringing businesses back to Dominica. It is attracting the private sector. What we have seen in the past 3 years has been a reduction in the private sector. Alexon talked about the number of businesses that have just shut down overnight in Portsmouth, for example. Okay, how do you bring those businesses back? How do you create new avenues, new opportunities? That is what this 10 pillars is all about. And that's the reason why a lot of people are very hopeful about this, because they see in that some basic plans, basic, simple plans. We are not, we're not reinventing much stuff, but we are just focused on what is there and what we can develop and what we can, expand on. But having the private sector be invigorated, providing incentives for the private sector that they can pass on higher wages to their workers, incentives that would allow companies to come and set up in Dominica in different areas. These are some of the things that we are pursuing. These are some of the things that we want to see. And as I said, at the heart of all of this, we firmly believe will be the young people driving that. They're the young people with the expertise. They will have the drive, the youth on the side and so on to do what is necessary. And so it's a very exciting time, Soso, and I suspect that not too long from now we'll be in a position to actually get this done, because I believe the Dominican public have agreed that the days of the Labour Party are over, and that they're looking forward to new direction, new leadership, new hope, and that's what we're able to bring to this Dominican public.
Yeah, and it is important that, I mean, we have to take note. You just mentioned, incentivizing the private sector. And just as you say that, someone is saying there, gentlemen, Dominicans depend too much on government, way too much on government. Internet, social media, these are ways to try to market your businesses through marketing. And that's a good point. And that is one of the reasons we said, look, youth entrepreneurship, that's where we're going. And Alexon is just one of the many young persons who have just set the example to show that it works. You can have your own business. I mean, fortunately for him, he was trained and he's developed his business. He has marketed it well, and so far he's known. Many other young persons may not have that opportunity because they have not been exposed to the world of work or even a skill to start the world of work. And so we have said before that once and for all, we'll make the enabling environment right for the young people. And in fact, the private sector should be able to get its fair share of incentives so that the private business people, the investors, can invest in young persons, employ people, and have a better success in the economy. And Alex, beyond that, I know that, yes, while you grow, and I know you will be growing a lot, your business will be expanding, and I'm sure you have in mind sometime in the future to train young persons who may be interested in your field of work. And so that in itself will, as you grow in, you'll have more contracts. You'll now become the man who can just go on your computer, put things on, say we are project, and your team go there. I'm sure I'm actually looking forward to that kind of contribution where you have been trained and now you are training other young persons to get involved. Is that something you're looking at?
Of course. I mean, I mean, it's all part of the process of getting people ready, prepared for the workforce. I mean, if I were to tell you the present pal rep for Portsmouth, like back then, like me and I, we really we irie, I would say.
You have to be good with everybody.
Where the disconnect is our political views.
That is
You understand? But she's somebody that she's somebody I know a long time. We kind of went school together, that kind of thing. Not together, but back in PSSD. So I know her a long time. And then I actually did work for her like in the past. And she was like, and she made a remark to me some time ago back then, before she was in that whole political scene, that it's people like you that need the NEP workers.
So imagine
but remember that was back then,
That was back then.
That was before I decided to be so vocal, and to be so, political based on my views.
Right.
And you can only be as vocal and political as you want to be based on your independence in Dominica. You understand?
Yeah.
When you feel that you don't have to go and beg nobody for bread, and you feel that you reach a standard in your life where you can stand on your own 2 feet and nobody can tell you to bend, or if they ask you to jump, you ask how high, that kind of thing. That the government really don't like that. They don't like independent people,
Correct.
And that is why they can manipulate people. You understand? The government seems to be running a country just for the social programs to make sense. You understand? So they will put you in a position basically. And that position is that if in case you fall sick, you have to go to the prime minister, or if in case you get an apartment, then you cannot say nothing, even if it's leaking, or even if a block fall on your head, you cannot say nothing because they will consider you ungrateful. You understand? Just like this guy just came back, and then he actually volunteering to cut grass at a particular park. You understand? He was actually, we don't say in our local terms, burning some fire. You're burning fire on the system. Yeah. And somebody actually passed and recorded him and sent it to the power rep. Trying to make him lose an NEP job where his voluntary work he was actually doing. Yeah. So it's like the country in a kind of situation where that's why I really believe that the 10 pillars will really make all these social programs irrelevant. And when I really looking so more forward to the most is the healthcare reform in terms of the insurance. I really looking forward to that, and I think that is the way forward. Instead of the elderlies getting free healthcare, elderlies and on the 16 getting free healthcare, I really believe that in this program is people like me that paying for it. Because that is part of the working class. You understand? And I think that program where the insurance policy plan that is part of the 10 pillars would really eliminate that whole preferential treatment. You understand?
Yeah, man. Yeah, very good. Very good. And somebody, I have 2 comments there I want to take. Somebody saying Benjamin's Park needs to be upgraded to regional standard, if not international. Yet the enough territory needs that, it needs that. And somebody said again, we need to teach young people the trades, the plumbing, the carpentry, the welding, electricity, yes, and stress engineering, a lot of things, tiling, a number of things. And, as he just mentioned about, the programs and the social programs, it's like, I don't know, we have reached that state. I mean, every country has some level of social programs. And the government seems to be using the social program to its advantage politically. Let me take this one. Greetings, evening to you all. I am Ken Linton, living in Maryland, listening to you all. Real talk now is the time for we, UWP, myself, to want to come to Dominica. We can do that. Time is coming soon, and very soon we're going to have a great man. What I see is people come first. Very good. So I'm coming to the point now about, the social program. And to be honest, nothing wrong with, dealing with the elderly. Our senior citizens, they have worked hard, they have paved the way. Some of them may not have been successful. And we need them to, in their golden age, we need to make sure that they are cared for. If they lack something, we can give them. But we made the point, and we said we are not against a free house. But when you look at those who were recipients of the houses, they could have gone to the bank, some of them, and developed themselves and own their own property. And you see those who needed the houses did not get the houses. And so it's unfair treatment, it's unfair assessment. And so we will regularize that where we know we do proper assessment, and those in need will be the ones getting. Not Paraback to come and say, give you that. No. You have what they call the welfare department. We must give them a chance to do their work and to ensure that the work is done in the interest of the people. All the time you have the political hand in that thing, it will be always selective. It will be also always be unjust, unfair, and the people who are targeted to get the right help will not get the right help. So Doc, we're on the right track, and I just want to applaud you as the leader of the United Workers' Party for this great initiative to let people know that the 10 pillars, of course, is what going to transform Dominica, and it's just that we need the chance. But in our own little infomercial, we can say, let us remind people that all what we are talking about is good, but they need to reconfirm. Dominicans in the Caribbean, when you come back on holidays, you are Dominican, you have your passport, you have your form of ID, you are already, some of you, most of you are already on the electors list. Get confirmed so that we can have one agenda to remove this government. And we are saying that to you again. Remember, all this is good talk. And you cannot let it go away. You hear the young man, Alexon, you hear him, Mr. Etienne from Portsmouth, telling you what he has become, what his village has become, his community, and we are telling you what our plans are. But for us to get it rolling, as Mr. Ken Linton said, we need to come together and have things done. But we're telling you, everyone, to get confirmed. So, Doc, let me just... Yes, go ahead. I just wanted to...
Yes, no, sure. I wanted to comment on the social programs, because that's one of the things that I think that has caused a lot of grief for a number of our elderly people, because a number of persons who are really fundamentally in need of that support, they're not getting the support because they're deemed not to be supportive of the government. And where you have a program that is paid for and funded by taxpayer dollar to selectively select people as to who is going to receive or who is going to benefit, I think it's really wrong, and it's really, immoral, to put it mildly. And that's the reason, that's one of our 10 pillars. We have social equity, because we believe that persons should be given support based on need. So the plan, according to our 10 pillars, is to ensure that we have a very good functioning social welfare system that can identify those who are in need, that the selection process is no longer in the hands of the PAL reps, but it will be in the hands of the professionals. So we'll look at persons on a case-by-case, need-by-need basis, and we'll give them the support that they need coming from the government. All right. So, and then we've already said that we don't believe that $300 for people in need is enough money. I mean, yeah, it's a start, but when you think that that's probably the amount you're going to spend in groceries for a two-person household every 2 weeks, $300 is nothing. It does not even cover your high Domlec bills and your transportation and so on. Okay, so rectifying that in terms of the amount that is given is one, but importantly, ensuring that it is fair, that is not based on whom you support, but it is based on need. And that I think is another fundamental difference that we will be bringing to governance in Dominica, that people don't have to be afraid to voice support for the opposition or for their party that they support. Too many of our people are quiet. Too many of our people are afraid to speak because they fear to be recorded. They fear to losing their jobs. And this government has shown their willingness to do that, Matthew. These fears are not unfounded. So when you see people duck in your public meetings, when you see people are not having a light, in fact, when we were in St. Joseph recently, somebody told me the mistake that we made was to have this bright light. We had, we said, so we're going to make sure we have a huge searchlight, But we say, well, that's a big mistake because too much light. people don't want to be caught in the lights and the pictures taken and so on, but that is where we are. That is the sad reality of today's Dominica and the politics that we have. And we want to change all of that. We want people to be able to, as citizens of this country, have the fundamental right to choose whom they support. And they should not be ashamed to show it. They should not be penalized for it. They should not be given a promotion based on it. Talking about promotions, we've seen the mess that they have done with the police service, for example, just promoting persons that they think are in support of the government and is not based on merit. So people get through the ranks very quickly, and very soon people know to keep quiet and to toe the line. And that, to me, I think is very, very sad, because what we have now is a number of positions that are filled by people who really should not be in those positions. But because they give public service to the government, they're in those positions. And those who are deemed not supportive of the government are penalized. And so there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of intimidation. And we need to move away from that. And that's what the United Workers' Party brings, fundamentally different from this government. A government, years ago, our slogan was fear no more. And I think people need to understand that they do not have to fear or to be afraid to support and to speak publicly. So Alexson is with us. I would love to have had a public servant on a matter of some national interest to be with us. But you will not get that public servant to come on there and talk to us. Why? Because they are fearful that if they do that, they'll be immediately categorized and they may lose a promotion, and that to me should not happen. So we are denying so many people opportunities to make bigger contributions to their country by this ridiculous politics that has been introduced by this Labour Party. And we're going to change all of that. That's one of the changes that the United Workers' Party is bringing to the table. That equity, that social equity is so critically important. The freedom to support and demonstrate your support for whichever party without fear of victimization is another thing that will ensure is honored on the United Workers' Party government.
Yes, but and I'm happy you said that. And it's also one-sided as well, because in the same breath, the Public Service Act is clear, and the public servants are guided by the act and the way they conduct themselves with political parties. Fair enough, they have to be more discreet. But hear that openly, some public servants are doing it for labor, and it's okay. But if one of them was to come on the program of the United Workers' Party, it's not okay. You see what the problem is? And that's where we have that problem. But so
you have a very interesting question there for Alex.
The person preempted my last question, so I'll leave it for last. The person will not decide when it is going to be asked, but that is a question I will leave for my young gentleman there last, but I'll take the one above there. Good evening, all. Dr. Fontaine, it's time to announce your full slate of candidates. Time is quickly approaching. Before you answer, Doc, I know traditionally it is not ethical sometimes. Well, we don't work. Doc will answer that, but I know traditionally in politics, there's a time, the same thing we're talking about, where people are sort of reserved until the time is right. But Doc, I can leave you to answer that, and I'll get back to the next question.
Yes, well, let me assure the public that we are working on getting our slate of candidates together. There is ongoing work on that, so let not your heart be troubled. We are confident that by the time the announcement is made, we'll have our full slate. Some people we can announce earlier than others, but it's an ongoing process. At the end of the day, we want to ensure that we get really good candidates that can represent the interests of their constituents, and that is what we're looking for. So it's not that we're not rushed or hurried, because we understand the urgency and the need to have those in place, but at the same time, we have to respect a process, and we have to move in a manner that ensures that we get only the best candidates to present themselves for office.
Yes, somebody saying there, we must do for self. We need to move away from government dependency. We developed this through colonialism, slavery. And somebody saying there again, you have to understand that the people have demoralized and made to believe that they can't do better for themselves. What the government can do for them, they've been wiped off their self-esteem and confidence in the ability to feed themselves, with the ability to work and innovate. They've been made to believe that they don't have to learn to fish for themselves, but rather to be handed a fish every day and moving, and nothing else matters. Please, Dominicans, wake up and smell the coffee. Get up. So now I'll get to my question that I have to, Mr. Etienne, it's a pleasure having you, and it seems to me that you have captured the confidence of the audience out there, and the question that is fundamentally right for you at this point in time as we close, and you, by the way, that would be your closing remark, and you'll respond to it one time as we wind down the program. The question for you is, person is asking, have you considered stepping into the political arena? Because you are friends to many politicians. You seem to have the issues at heart. You seem to have the know-how and willingness. Is it time that you step up to change and to bring some perspective for youth with respect to leading them to a direction of good change?
Well, I mean, I have been doing that, for a while. I mean, I speak to people on a daily basis. And before I answer that question, surprisingly, I meet young men and asking them, trying to encourage them to work and earn, be your own person, you understand, and build your own home, do what you want, do your own design, you understand?
Yes.
And you surprisingly you find people that would actually tell you, oh, why should I do all that when I can get a free house? you understand? So sometimes the policies we put in place really make it hard to build a nation, and to get serious people to be part of a workforce, because some of them really don't think they need to work hard because they think that, the government is giving free homes. Yes. You understand? So sometimes it's really hard. But in terms of the question, I think, honestly, I would consider myself being political, you understand? Because honestly, it take a level of bravery to do what I do, especially coming from Portsmouth. You know how Portsmouth has been voting red for 70 years, Yeah. You understand? That is 3 scores and 10, that and it's just so I don't, but it's something I actually consider in, and I believe in the fundamentals of my party, and if my party need me in that way, I think I might. It's something I'm really considering. But then, I cannot just make that decision alone, because one day I might come home and meet my people and disappear. So it's something I cannot just decide on my own. Yes. And at the end of the day, I think leaders are put forward. Leaders will just put themselves on people. You understand? Yes, I really believe that. At the end of the day, you're not leading yourself. If you decide to do that, it has to be people put you up for that position. So let's see what happens.
Yes, okay, right. And that's good. I mean, that's food for thought. It appears that you're answering some people here tonight already. But somebody said...
Well, yes, so I'm seeing other people saying
Etienne for Portsmouth. Let's go. Where to go? Somebody saying, I want to take that point because I saw it earlier on. The reality is clear. Something's out of balance. When the cost of living rises faster than wages, the system is not working for the people under the current regime. It's time for us to speak up and demand change. We are great people. Dominica is blessed by God, Dominicans. We are loved by God. We are blessed. Wake up, wake up. Breathe of fresh air. Breathe of fresh air. Welcome to the free, young brother. So it appears that, Mr. Etienne, you have been endorsed on that side of things. As you say, you rightly say there are proper channels to get the way in, and that you will respect. And I love what you do. Leonard Lavin is watching from St. Martin. So yes, we have come to the end of the program before Doc make his final remarks. Let me just say, Doc, you're going to weigh in on that and just give us your closing remarks while we wind down the curtain, please.
Well, certainly. So I want to say a big thank you to Alexon. He was electrifying on the platform in Layo.
In Layo, man.
100 days ago. And and certainly we thank him for coming out there with us tonight and really expressing a very good view. Here you have a young man, independent, hardworking, the kind of people that we believe is needed to drive this country forward. So I'm very happy that he accepted our invitation to be with us tonight and to and to share so freely about his vision, his views on Dominica, politics, and so on. So we're very thankful for that, and we hope that many more people will step up like that as he's doing. And with regards to the calls and continuing calls for him to step into the ring, well, that is something certainly I'm sure he's thinking about, but certainly these are the kind of persons that would do well within the setting of a United Workers' Party Team Dominica to bring that change and that we have been pushing forward. And so I want to thank everyone who joined us tonight, many persons all over the globe who are hearing us tonight, who will hear us in the days ahead. We continue to put forward a very positive approach to development, very serious one, because Dominica needs change. Dominica needs to offer more to its people, and that is what we are doing by putting forward the 10 pillars, is to encourage more participation, to bring economic growth and development to this country, and to have people put money in their pockets. The theme of our 10 pillars is shared prosperity for all Dominicans. We believe in that all boats will rise with the United Workers' Party, with the tide of UWP. All boats will rise. We have a very ugly picture now in Dominica. We have very few persons, very, very few, becoming multimillionaires, and the vast majority of the population are struggling and suffering. We want to change that dynamic. We believe that the wealth of the country belongs to the people of the country, and it should be shared, it should be distributed amongst the people, and that ultimately all of us will rise together. And that's the vision we bring forward to the people of Dominica, and I want to thank all those who are buying into that vision for better Dominica, a vision that will certainly put us in a much better place than we currently are. And so we just want to say good night and thanks again to all of you. And we look forward to joining you on Thursday on the Workers' Voice and to continue our discussion about so many issues. Just to mention, Soso, before I close, last week we were talking about increasing prices. Mm-hmm. And just today we heard of the petrol price, the price in an announcement that diesel and gasoline has been jacked up. The price has been jacked up. So, some more pain coming Dominica's way.
Yes, and and that's so sad. And I just got a text from a young lady saying, well, she was very impressed with Mr. Alexander Etienne. And she said, Mr. Etienne, go for it. You seem to exhibit a lot of the attributes for political direction. And she was encouraging you in your future endeavors. And that she's proud that you were able to show that a skill can supersede just a normal job. And she want to wish you well in everything that you do going forward. So, Mr. Etienne, let me thank you. Tonight, you got some endorsement. It put you in a better position to think going forward. And let me just thank Dr. Thomson Fontaine for this great initiative and the connection that he has with youth. Let me just thank for all those who have participated, made contributions. And, we always say that we need this support. We have court cases. We are there doing the job. And that's our mobile banking ID. 555-2242 and our account number 1005636. Let's go contribute to us. You can go online as well, uwp-dominica.com, click on donation, and here you go. Give us something good to continue paying for our programs and for our activities. We are doing what we have to do with respect to fundraising, but we need your support. Again, as we said, more banking, 555-222-42. That is the ID, but the account number is 1005636. You visit our website, uwp-dominica.com, click on donation, and here we go. Let me just say again, thank you, gentlemen. It has been a pleasure. Until next time, this has been Real Talk. We are saying to Dominicans, go out and get confirmed. We are ready to do this. People come first. You come first. Your vote comes. It comes first. Let's do this together. Let's just do it. Until next time, we say good night and God bless.
God bless. Everything.